Thanks, Di. It was, well, we're celebrating 20 years. So 20 years ago, I was not the big boss. And we started Compassion Fatigue. We were also, that year, my dad and I were in this room for Billy Seligman's bar mitzvah. It's the last time I was here, was 20 years ago today. It's a beautiful environment, Sunnybrook Park in the back. You should visit that as a visitor. And it's great to see all of you. Thank you for being here. It's a really important event for us. Some of the OGs are in the room. So Diane, of course, was our creator of this event. Lynn Hartford's here. Julie McDonald is here. So acknowledge yourselves. Thank you for being with us all this time. A lot of our staff are here too. I want to acknowledge all of them. Naomi helped me with my presentation. She's here. David Lackman's over there. You know, my dad and Diane are here. I see other people in the room. Who else is here? So Cynthia, Jessica, April, Navneet, Katrina. Who else is here that I didn't? Cynthia, I see. April, I mentioned. Anyone else from the office here? Let us know. So big group here. We're going to explore an interesting topic. We've learned about how difficult compassion fatigue is. We're going to explore whether technology helps or hurts this issue. It's an interesting discussion. Can it help? So I don't know. Did you have we're all going to, we didn't collaborate. So we've all got a little bit of overlap.
I just have so much to say about the last presentation that I've been
Jonathan wants to do a few introductory remarks.
Yeah, like I want to get vulnerable. I'm wounded. That was great. Yeah, I just, as you were going through your presentation, I was thinking of 3 specific things recently that have come up that are relevant. I think you'd want to hear it, and I thought maybe everyone else would want to hear it too. So 2 weeks ago was the criminal sentencing for the driver, an 19-year-old driver who was driving drunk on the 401, and his actions caused 3 children to die. We represent the family, David and I, and the kids were 16, 13, and 6, and the 10-year-old son survived. And it's a tragedy all around. This kid had no record, and the judge, Madam Justice Crosby, stopped while reading her decision on sentencing and was crying. And she was wiping her eyes with Kleenex, said, "Excuse me." And it was just, it's nice to see that a judge, while reading wasn't afraid to stop and do that. So I thought that was something to share. The other thing, when you're talking about clients in this situation and for everyone else as well, we're in the trauma/tragedy business, unfortunately. And I have a really hard time to not go too far. I was like, okay, I cry a little bit, but not go too far. So in the process of not trying to give up too much, I can stay a little bit guarded, and then it usually comes out in other ways, like I start sweating profusely, but my face still, focused. But I had a mediation. I represent the parents of a 19-year-old girl, woman that died, an only child. And I mean, this case is just filled with opportunities to bawl your eyes out. After she had just completed first year at York, and a couple years later, York gave her an honorary degree in memoriam, and her mother went up to accept the degree with the giant photo of her and holds it to the crowd. And it's just like, I have this, I don't know if this, Bernie, you're going to want this case to go to trial. I want a jury to see that. It hasn't resolved yet. So, yeah. So, anyway, we had a mediation. At the end of it, we're just sitting there, and I just said, it's an honor to represent, your family and the honor of Yulia. And then they started crying. I was crying with them. It was on Zoom, unfortunately, in the middle of COVID, but it's like, should I just end meeting now, or should I let them see that I'm crying, anyway. So, and then lastly, and there's a few people who know him. So yesterday for you was an important anniversary with your mother. Yesterday for me, and you talked about it in your presentation, one of my close friends who was the ultimate connector died from suicide. Is that, you say died from suicide? By suicide? Died by suicide 5 years ago yesterday. And that gave me a lot of opportunity in the non-work world to learn about dealing with that stuff. There's a lot of people in this room who actually knew him. His name was Mark Cooper. He was a camp director at Camp Tamarack. Last night, a few of his close friends got together, and his son was there for the first time at this get-together. He's turning 20 this summer, And, it's just being able to talk about that here. I think it makes me a stronger lawyer because, we've been everybody's wounded, like you said. So I didn't plan to say any of those things, but I thought I'd share three of those points because it moved me from your presentation. Thanks.
Many clients stick with us. And, when we think about our families and you get involved in a case where it's someone that hits home, it hits close to home, it's hard. And, as lawyers, you don't think of us, you think of us as being, strong advocates and emotionless. And Jonathan's proven that point that, we really do, we do feel it and we do, they stick with us. And, anyway, that's not a segue. Just to comment to what Jonathan said. I'd be amiss, though, if I didn't shout out to Brenda and Emily for putting on this event. I don't know where they are in the room, but I wanted to give a special mention. This is an amazing event. Obviously, Diane's chairing it, and Brenda and Emily have pulled it off as well. So they're in the back working hard, making sure this goes without a beat. I know we've used like half of our time. So I'm going to rush through now some of the slides to talk about how technology could help, but it could also hurt some of these factors we've talked about. Dario Amodi is the CEO of Anthropic, which is supposed to be the ethical version of AI. And he talks about that we've really underestimated how radical a change we're in for. In fact, he often will suggest that every year that goes by currently in this world of information is like 10 years of what we're previously used to. So a lot of us are used to getting the new iPhone and saying, oh, it doesn't do what it promised to do. Things are changing so radically that we're going to see a lot of, disruption coming forward. I'm just going to introduce the topic. I know Jonathan's going to talk about how it affects the clients, and Pinta's going to wrap it up and put it on with a bow as to the good and the bad and some of the things we can learn from this. It does affect healthcare, and so I'm not going to jump out of the legal side. I mostly talk about legal technology and the way AI affects how we practice, but I'm going to just highlight some of the things I think are going to radically affect how you all work in the healthcare field and what it could do in dealing with compassion fatigue. So just a brief introduction as to how we got here. We go from, the version of what they called artificial intelligence, this idea that a computer can represent what we do. And you see over time where we created all this data into machines, and we call them large language models or machine learning. And we move into this deep learning where the computers are becoming bigger and bigger. And but then they also micro-size them, right? I mean, this computer was a supercomputer in the 50s, and it would take up the size of this room, and now we can hold it in our hand. And where we're going with it. So we're now in this world of generative AI where it basically predicts speech and predicts all the things that we want to say. And so it can emulate our conversations and really create human contact, what we think is human contact. We think we're talking to humans. And the next stage will be, it's not far away in the next 5 years, where these computers will exceed our capabilities. And that is kind of scary, but also interesting as to the kind of scientific discoveries it will lead to. It basically works by finding a needle in a haystack much faster than we can. So, think of a chess game where you're playing chess and you can't beat the computer anymore. Kasparov lost in the 80s to a computer, and we knew that we were on this road of machines can be smarter than humans. So that's what artificial narrow intelligence is. So we give it a task and it does it as well or better than we do. Think of a self-driving car. It's not cooking your food. It's not walking your dog, but it is able to drive from point A to point B. I was able to test out the Waymo ride when I was in California to see my son graduate last week, and it was pretty cool. It does make mistakes, though. It couldn't get out of the gas station, but it could get you from point A to point B. And it was interesting to see, you can't sit in the driver's seat, so you have to see and watch it drive. It's kind of interesting. So that is narrow intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is taking basically the computer and saying, we've combined it all and it is now smarter than all of us put together. So that's where we're heading. The other example I give is mice think at 10 to the power of 9, and we are at 10 to the power of 13, and the whole human race is at 10 to the power of 24. So if you gave a mouse the processing power of a human, and a year later you said to it, you're going to go back to being a mouse, it'd probably say, like, forget it. I'm staying at that 10 to the power of 13. I want to be able to think like a human. So as much as we're scared about having this higher level of intelligence, if we could get ourselves in, that same processing power, which is one of the promises of AI, is that we will be somehow embedded with the system and we will be thinking that much faster. Think about listening to podcasts at the speed of 4 times of what you're listening to, and it sounds like gibberish. That is the kind of processing power that would be needed to learn at that level. So you say, that's pretty scary, I don't want to do it. But maybe the next generation, if they got that, they wouldn't want to go back to 10 to the power of 12. They would be saying, like, why would we want to think so slowly? So you never know until you try it out what that would be like. So what this revolution is telling us is that intelligence has become like a commodity, like a tool. It's going to be embedded in everything we do, and it's going to be available. So every product you look at is going to have some form of intelligence. That's why they've got all these wearables. Your fridge will know when you're out of food, and it will think for you and do stuff for you. And in terms of how quick the uptake is, if you think about some of the other technologies and how long it took for cell phones to get 100% adoption over 25 years, look at the speed of artificial intelligence. It's only since 2023, that ChatGPT came out. And yet now it's everywhere. And it's going to be even more embedded every year that goes by. So it's just coming very quickly. So how is this affecting what we do in medicine? Well, I don't know. Is anyone a fan of The Pit? Season 2, the new person comes in and she's talking about dictating and having the notes taken on her phone when she's doing a client interaction. It's exactly the kind of thing that we think of in the law as well. Can we get all that paperwork and mundane work done by someone else? We don't need an assistant in the room typing it. We can have it dictated, and it's pretty good. It's not 100%, but it's probably 95% accurate. And then we go back and edit it, and then we can file the note away, and we can focus more time on that interaction one-to-one. And so that doctor-patient time can be much more important than just filling out paperwork, because the doctor only has so much time, or the nurse has only so much time. And so if you're doing the paperwork and it takes up 50% of their day, you're losing all that patient interaction. That's just an example. What about in the decision making? So you go to your eye study and your ophthalmologist takes a picture of your eye, it's a glaucoma test, and they send it into the ether, which looks like that. And they're comparing it because that ophthalmologist sees, 2,000 eyes a year, but the LLM has seen millions of eyes and now can tell you exactly whether that diagnosis is accurate. So that's the kind of medicine interaction. So this is the scribing. What are some of the emerging techs? Comfort robots. How many people are alone in their later parts of life and they need company, and the nurses aren't one-to-one and they're too expensive? They're talking about robots, $30,000 for the cost of a robot, or you could lease a robot. It would be $300 a month, and you could do a lot better than the cost of a nurse who doesn't have the time or the availability to spend all that time keeping you company. And they can be surveillance, and they can monitor and remind about a medication, so the family can have interaction remotely. And so think about that kind of interaction. Or chatbot therapy. We know what's going on with that. People say, oh, well, they won't be empathetic. They can't be empathetic. The studies actually say the opposite. Okay. They actually say that humans, because we're biased and we come with all our emotional baggage, your dog is sick, or you took a long train to get to the office, or you had a fight with your spouse, and now you're giving therapy, but your mind is somewhere else. Well, the chatbot doesn't have that problem. And in fact, they're programmed to be empathetic. We just started yesterday a new AI after hours receptionist. Call our office, try it out. I had my wife try it last night. She was totally impressed.
What's the name?
What's the name of the robot?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it says. I just had her try it out, but it was a female voice. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about, like, it was just a very genuine, empathetic sounding voice. And, it's going to get better and better. So don't be so sure that we are the best at empathy, because we're probably not. But we do want human-to-human contact. And that is our special sauce, is that we will want human-to-human contact. And I think even as lawyers, with all the tech doing stuff for us, people still want people to guide them. And that's going to be the same in healthcare. I got to speed up. I know. So what is this? These are all the new toys coming out. Ways to monitor your health, things like that. And they're talking about, if you watch some of the podcasts, there's a lot of promises of AI and what it's going to do when it reaches artificial general intelligence. Growing organs, pills for longevity, all this fancy stuff, which we're very excited about. But there are perils. And, what happens when we rely on them too much? What is going to happen? Does that have an impact? Does it force us to do more work? Because now the expectation is that you're always available for your patient, because you can do this paperwork through AI. You should be able to answer the phone on the weekends. You should be always available. So it can create more stress for you. I can't read what this says. Could cause burnout, like we talked about. And what about AI aversion? So there was a study that came out that students in middle school are, oh, great, thank you. Now I can see the slide. Just changed it. Students in middle school are, 50% of the students are distrustful of teachers. And that's because of AI, right? Because they fact check the teacher. I don't believe what you're teaching me is accurate. It's kind of like fake news. And the same goes the other way. Teachers don't trust the students because they think the students have done their homework on AI. So this distrust, right, because we all have these great smart phones next to us, has led to this distrust in general. Everyone's fact checking everyone. You can't have a conversation without checking to see, well, no, that's not quite true. But then, is it right what you looked up? I think Richard and you had a discussion about that, about one of your birth trauma cases with AI. So, and so it also the idea of, is it going to take my job? You've got all these great tools now. Does that mean I don't have a job? And my staff asked me that because I'm so passionate about all this technology. But in fact, we were 25 people in my office at the start of COVID, and I've always been passionate about tech, and we're now 62. So I think tech makes us do more things that we want to do, gives us more time. And the optimistic view is that we will have more time with our families, more time to pursue our hobbies, let the AI do the boring stuff, we do the good stuff, and that's the positive side of it. The negative side of it is we become over-reliant on it. We stop thinking out of the box, coming up with our own creative solutions, because we're now looking at these box solutions that are repetitive. We're just answering the essay looks the same as everyone else's essay. And so how are we using our creativity to come up with new solutions? So instead of thinking about it as a replacement, we think about it as a companion. So this would be the solution. These are just some other slides about excessive use. I still can't read it. So mitigating the risks. Think about AI as your companion through this process. So let it do the stuff you don't want to do while you can focus on the stuff you want to do. Keep that positive view. Mel, what is it? let them, the let them theory. Do you ever talk about that one? Let them, as all these people have this great work life. Well, let them, you do it your way and find your solution through this. There's always going to be change, and you've just got to be open to the change. I think AI has a lot of great promise. The problem has been, what are the guardrails? What are the protections? In Canada, we have some good guardrails. We have a lot of protection over privacy. We have protection over confidentiality and healthcare records. In the US, they don't really care about these protections. So if you're using these solutions, make sure you're using Canadian-born solutions, because they have those laws that they're abiding by. And I think that will reassure you that you're doing the best for your patient care. I'm going to just let others talk, because I took probably too much time.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Whoever's next. We're going to pass it on and talk about it from
Okay.
the
What
client
time's the break? 10:40? 15 minutes? Hard stop? Good.
Oh, you got extra 5 minutes.
So I did a talk at OTLA, and there are people here that were there that day, but I'm not going to do the whole thing. But if we're talking about AI, how can we not talk about the emails we now get from people that have bullet points, really well structured sentences, research, and who am I talking? So put up your hand if you've got an email from somebody who used to not be able to put together a very coherent email, and now it looks like it's immaculate. Yeah. So that's happening in all of our fields, and now we have to deal with that. This was from, okay, who am I talking to? So the idea for the topic started when Steve Rasted and I were in the Barrie office just having a regular day, and we got one of those emails, and I said, someone's got to talk about the fact that people are creating documents, photos, and emails that aren't real. This is a real photo, but this could have been doctored. So we, and then I also, for OTLA, I ripped off some of Charles' presentation to put in, some of the AI pieces. I'm only 46, but I'm not up to date with AI the same way that Charles is. I'm working on it. Thanks. Someone at the conference 2 years ago, Adam Wagman, said 2 things about AI. It's here and you can't avoid it. And 2, be careful. Be very, very careful. I have the slide talk to colleagues because before the OTLA conference, and it's relevant here, I talked to an OTLA member, a lawyer out of Thunder Bay, Jeffrey Morley, who told me a story that really concerned me. He was reading his clinical notes and records of his client's family doctor, and in the notes it said, patient's family encouraging her to attribute more of her injuries to the accident, which is that's a case ender if that shows up in the records. So he saw this, like, oh my God, why did that doctor write that? What did that really happen? Asked the client. The client said, we never said anything like that. There was no discussion about that at all. Then he called the doctor, and the doctor said, oh my God, my AI scribe must have messed up. We were loosely talking about something, but it wasn't about her, and it was certainly not, like, he couldn't believe it. So now, like that photo, like the videos my daughters show me, the first thing you see when you see something is you have to pause and almost forensically authenticate it. It's a blessing and a curse. It's fun, but everything we look at, extra grain of salt now. So I had Charles's 3 artificial intelligence slides in there, and I had 3 from our perspective. So these are clients who are using AI, and in patients for everyone else. Intake, current clients, and clients who are using AI to actually create documents. So I'm going to skip through this one because it's from our perspective, when we get an intake email from, that it comes in and this is what I'm looking for, and it's very succinct. It's almost, it feels like a red flag. This is going to be a difficult person. Do I even want to engage with somebody who starts with this? Do I run for the hills? What we're starting to learn is that just because someone's using AI to create an email, it doesn't mean they're automatically a difficult person. Yeah, or they understand what they just wrote. But the first instinct as a professional who has spent years of schooling, education, training, practice to develop a skill set and a knowledge base, gets an email from somebody that they pulled something off in 5 minutes that they know better than us. It's tough on the ego to not want to run for the hills. I'm going to skip through the Law Society. The Law Society is behind on, well, I guess I don't know what the bodies are, but we need some training, I think, or some guidance on how to deal with clients in these situations. If they send us 30 pages of medical research on their own, do we have to include that in our analysis when we're talking to them? What do we do if we ignore it because it's too much, treat them, and then there's a problem? So anyway, we're waiting to see how the Law Society guides us on it, but really it just comes down to the rules of professional conduct for us, which is to treat it the same as we always have, just incorporating the new technology. This was interesting because it showed me that somebody who I didn't expect, we had a great phone call. She had a fall, she broke her wrist, and then at the end of the conversation, she said to me, AI told me my wrist injury is worth 50 to 90,000. Is that what I will get? And she had fallen 4 days ago and broken her wrist, and it was unclear if she needed surgery. It was her non-dominant arm. We could go and my first reaction is, okay, here are my options. I'll go, how about A? Maybe you should hire ChatGPT as your lawyer. Probably not a good way to acknowledge or validate her own research. Guess you don't really need me. Would you let ChatGPT perform your upcoming wrist surgery? Or interesting, and let's talk about it. So a lot of the wounded things that we have, I think, in life come from our own experiences in childhood, and the issue of validation is very important. I think it's very important for us to validate clients for doing this research. Don't scold them or ignore them or bemean them for it, but then take the research and do something positive with it and say things like, I'm glad you're researching. Let's go through what you found. It builds trust and keeps you in control of the interpretation. So that's one of the tools, whipping through, mindful of the time. I want to let Pinta speak as well. Yeah, we had a mediation coming up, and a client sent me an email. He had done all this research to tell me why his case was worth $2.4 million. It wasn't, but I get it, and I want to look at it and say, okay, thanks. Again, the same thing. Ugh, but look at it. It's great that you're doing research. Let's talk about it. We have a lot of important people in this room who have championed trauma-informed lawyering, trauma-informed care. We now have something called the AI-informed client. So that's as soon as I see that this is an AI-informed client, I have to take a deep breath and step back and be able to actually validate, balance the expertise, communication control, and their own experience. This is interesting too, but because it comes into play in law and might come into play with some of your patients' clients, is what if they create something? So I had a client with major sleep issues. That was his main concern. And before discovery, he said, I created a document that sort of shows my sleep pattern. Should I send it to you? And I said, yeah, sure, send it. Let's take a look. He sent me a 23-page slide deck called My Journey to Recovery, from denial, resistance, acceptance. It had a table of contents, a prologue, appendices, and I think it is therapeutic, and probably if there's no legal side to it, where it's going to be scrutinized by someone, great. It could still be great in this, but you have to be careful. And he created this document, health and well-being. This is my physical health. He put his own McDonald's and Tim Hortons stuff on there. And, the question is, one, do I have to send this to the other side? Is this part of his case now? Do I have to share this? Can I say this is privileged because he created it for me? What do I do with this information? Do I try to use it to my advantage because now I can turn this into a psych claim? That's mean. I didn't anyway, but I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. Anyway. So there's some cases in the States that say, and it hasn't happened here. If a client in a case does their own AI research and prepares something that is separate from specifically for their lawyer, it could be producible. So just reminding patients to be careful. Oh, I was just using this as an example of. Does this work here? Yeah. I didn't do that. I would never do that. I was having dinner with an accountant, It was lobster once a year, very special. And after dinner, he just sent me that. I had no idea he took a photo of me. I had no idea he took the lobster logo from my bib and had it attack me, and he just sent it to me. So it's just an example of what normal people are doing these days. I'm sure your family... Anyway, and the last thing that I want to say before I turn it over to Pinta is imagine before that OTLA conference, I've had a trial or something and I couldn't prepare anything. Look what the tools that people have at their disposal. Help, I'm giving a 30-minute presentation to personal injury lawyers about how to deal with clients that are using AI, and it gave me the frickin' thing, just like this. This is free ChatGPT AI. Frame the problem. Ground rules. Section 3, this is where your talk becomes memorable. Talk about backseat lawyering. Talk about inaccurate outputs. This is the heart of your presentation. Normalize AI use. Don't fight it. I'm glad you're researching. Let's go through what you found. And all these great tools. So because there's 5, that was what I talked about at OTLA. But I really think, and I don't know if I have the answers on how to do it, but really the balancing between our expertise and our authority and our advice to our clients and our patients and validating what they're doing without putting them down, without writing it off completely, also not taking it all and just using it and running with it. But this is going to be an evolving trend in all of our lives and the type of work we do. So let's stick together and figure out a way to work together on it. Thank you.
I don't have a slideshow. I apologize. My name is Pinta Maguire. I'm one of the senior lawyers in the medical negligence group at Gluckstein. And although this event has been going on for 20 years, this is my first time attending. I only joined Gluckstein last year and met Diane this fall, and she was lovely and invited me to speak at this conference. So I'm really grateful to be here in front of all of you because I think this topic is so interesting and important. I started out my career defending physicians at the college and in civil proceedings. And I don't know if many of my plaintiffs, med-mal lawyers would agree, but I have seen the hardship on them when they are dealing with these lawsuits. They are upset. Their professionalism has been attacked. And so it was really helping physicians that drove me to the other side because that's what I love to do. I realized what I wanted to do was to help individuals. And I think coming through this career, I'm here now 20 years out, I do believe that compassion in this career is a strength. And it's something that you struggle with, I think, as providers and as lawyers. You want to have that balance. You want to show that compassion, but you also need to keep a little bit of distance or build in safeguards so that when you have to dive in and expose yourself a little bit, you have something on the other side that you can know you can build yourself back up. But on this topic, how do we use AI to help prevent vicarious trauma? So I think it's actually really interesting what Jonathan said, and I had that initial gut reaction when we started getting many, many, many intakes that are clearly drafted by AI. And you think, oh, I don't want to deal with this. This is difficult. There's so many pages of research, and I don't know what's right and what's wrong. But thinking about it from the perspective of clients, how difficult is it for them to reach out to lawyers and tell their story? And in my industry, being told, our clients who come to us, they're likely told no by many, many law firms before they get to us. And we are probably going to tell them no as well for most of the cases that, or most of the intakes that come to us. But for them to have that ability to not have to sit down and relive their trauma and relieve a little bit of that through using AI, I think it's a really important tool. And I think we have to reflect as lawyers that this is something that is in fact helping our potential clients and getting to us. So I know the initial reaction, and my initial reaction was the same. I don't want to deal with this, but thinking back as to how clients can use this to help prevent their own trauma in trying to seek legal assistance. For us as lawyers and healthcare practitioners, I'm really excited to be working at a firm where we are at the forefront of using so many of these AI technologies. I think it's actually going to be helpful for us on an intake process. Even though we say no to 99% of the intakes, every story that comes to us, someone has been traumatized with the medical system. And so we are reading literally like tens and hundreds of these intakes every month and reading these horrible stories. And, I feel terrible that I can't help all of these people. I mean, some of the cases, I'm like, okay, well, no, that's not really a case, or this is not the help that you need. But a lot of the time, the injury is real. It's just that the limits of our legal system in Canada, we're not like the US where, you have these hundreds of $1 million awards. The limits of our legal systems mean that most of these cases are not worthwhile to pursue because the trauma of participating in the legal process is not worth the money at the end of it. And before I joined Gluckstein, I was at a much smaller firm and on my own, and I had much fewer intakes. And one of the things that I did at the beginning, and I had to stop because there was just so many at the end, is I would try and talk to everyone that came in. And even if it was a brief phone call, just to explain to them why I couldn't help them or why they're getting a no all the time from someone else. And that's not something we can do, and not something that is actually good at guarding your own safety because you're just talking over and over again and telling them no. But I cannot tell you how many people were so grateful to me to actually explain to them why we couldn't help them. And I still do that for certain types of cases. If I see that a fatality has come in and it's not a case that we can assist with, or God forbid they've lost a child and it's not a case that we can assist with, I do try and set up a call and say, listen, I'm going to explain to you what the limits are. I'm going to try and put you in the hands of someone who may take this case because it's not at our threshold. But using checklists and using screening tools, I think through AI is going to help us perhaps flag those cases where you would want to talk to that client to make sure that they are put in the right hands rather than a straight no. And I'm going to give an example from our own system. So an intake came in last week. It didn't get to any lawyer because it was nowhere near our threshold. But another lawyer that I was working with on another file at another firm reached out to me because they wanted to partner with me on this file. It was about a Black woman who unfortunately had lost her child and was had to go in for a second trimester late termination. And it was a consent issue. The physician didn't get her consent to continue with the procedure when she was in extreme amount of pain. And that was a case that was weeded out of our system, but had we had these, AI checklists, that might be a case where I would want to talk to that person and give them, okay, this is where I think we might have a case. This is who I would put you in the hands of because I can't help you. So I am excited that we are starting to adopt these systems. I'm hoping it will help us, flag those clients who maybe we can't help on a legal level, but we need to help them more on a personal level because there is so much pain out there. And there's, as hard as we work, physicians, nurses, everyone, they make mistakes. And my job isn't necessarily to, point the finger at them and, I'm out of time. Thank you. I'll just wrap this up. But I just wanted to say this is such a great conference. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Emily and Brenda and Diane for planning this. I think it's so important that practitioners have this outlet and that we can talk about these issues because it is a wonderful career. It's a wonderful work that we are all doing, but it is hard work and it is hard heart work for us. So having these resources is incredibly important. Thank you.